Hey, this is Trav here. Just a reminder that there is a Patreon account for this podcast, and it really helps keep this podcast going and paid for every month. And I would just like to thank the supporters so far, and that's Bill, Grant, Lisa, Mog, Dan, and Paula. Thank you so much, and here's the podcast. Hey, welcome to Tales from the Mind Boat, slow moving gondola boat ride through the murky mist of my mind. This is Trav Nash speaking, and thank you very much for listening to this podcast. It really does mean a lot to me. Today's episode is all about teeth, and specifically my teeth, and how my ridiculous disregard for them has gotten me into a bit of trouble lately. So it's a good show, I guess. All you need to do is sit back, relax, think about sunshine and lollipops. Sometime last December, I was eating a muffin when I heard this loud crack. A sound that had the amazing ability to mutate from a tiny sound heard internally, somewhere in the back left of my mouth, and then turned into panic and dread as my brain had a pretty good idea what it was, and suddenly a nervous impulse ran down from my head to my chest, and my heart upped its productivity by at least 75%. As soon as the panic threw a net around my heart and tried to bring it up through my throat like it was the catch of the day, I instantly spat out a mouthful of half-chewed chocolate muffin onto my computer table, and there, among the smattering of soggy brown chocolate crumbs that was now peppered all over and around my keyboard, I saw it. It was the top part of my third tooth, one of my back molars. Losing teeth was literally my worst nightmare. All my life I've been cursed of dreams of speaking in public or doing mundane things like sitting in class at my old primary school, and suddenly teeth would start to fall away from my gums and plummet to the floor like marbles. Where they hit the floor with a loud clacking sound, I instantly woke up from my nightmare and would head straight to the bathroom and spend about 10 minutes inspecting my teeth as I vigorously brushed them and try to make up for all those times in my youth when I would neglect all advice from my school dentist to always keep good dental hygiene practices, otherwise you'll start to look like those horrific textbook mouths of rotten decay. My teeth look terrible, and it's nobody's fault but my own. Through vast months of depression, I found myself giving up on everything and felt no need to maintain my appearance, because nothing really matters anymore, especially when you nearly die twice of unknown reasons. It's hard not to consider the fact that you may not make it to the end of the year, and how you may appear as you lay there in the morgue having your blood drained from you is of no consequence to a mortician, who has more than likely seen worse. I got to the point where I just gave up brushing, until my teeth hurt so much that I would vigorously get into the habit again, until the pain subsided, and then I would return back to my natural state of caring very little how I would appear, and just decided to smile less, and already that seemed like something I was quite good at. It should also go without saying that it had been a very long time since I've been back to the dentist. It must be coming up almost 10 years, which is pretty good, I guess. Last time I was there was because I was in unbearable pain as my wisdom teeth were slowly killing me. I've never known such intense pain before, and I hope I would never experience it again. I had the teeth removed, and what really surprised me was how quickly it can be achieved and how expensive it cost. The whole time I was there, the dentist was shaming me for not going to the dentist, and made the assumption it was because, probably like a lot of people, I expect that she sees daily. It was because I feared the dentist, but to be perfectly honest, I've never had that much of an issue with going to see the dentist. I think more than anything, it's the expense that keeps me away. It's not like they bulk bill like going to see a doctor. It costs a crazy amount of money, even for just a checkup, and a creepy x-ray of your mouth, of like a mouth's glowing skeleton, and it's not like they even give you a copy of the x-ray to put on your wall and pretend to be all macabre, dark and edgy. Maybe as a kid I didn't like going to see the school mandatory checkups, but not necessarily because of what the dentist might actually do to my teeth. Although growing up in a lot of 80s and 90s sitcoms, the dentist was never portrayed in a good light in popular culture. I still associate most dentists with Steve Martin in Little Shop of Horrors. The dentist that I had to go see as a kid was at another school, so at least I got half a day off, which was an added bonus. My mum would drive me to some eerily empty and quiet, unfamiliar school and would find this strange spearmint-coloured green transportable building with windows that you couldn't see in, because they had sticky taped up children's artwork of smiling faces and cartoon smiling teeth. I don't know why it was there, maybe to put you at ease, but it made it more like they were trying to hide something. I still remember the smell of that room. It was thick clouds of fluoride and cleaning products that I was kind of used to growing up in a house where my mum cleaned whenever she felt nervous, which was almost every waking hour of the day. But there was also an unfamiliar scent interlaced with the chemical smells. When the dentist entered the room, they were always overly enthusiastic people who tried to make you at ease, but always felt like at any moment it could be a trap. The next thing you know, you're horizontal on a chair. The next thing you know, you're in their chair, you're laying perfectly horizontal, and there's no way out. And all you could do was look up at the motivational posters that they had attached to the ceiling. One poster was a cartoon tooth waving around a toothbrush and battling some kind of scribbly looking germs that were trying to bite on the remaining teeth. I used to think about this poster a lot. I mean, what made that tooth so special that it came to life, uprooted itself and learned how to sword fight and found a tiny toothbrush? That I would have no idea where you would even find such a thing. Even more curious was the fact that these germs were probably the size of M&Ms, and surely you would feel that in your mouth if they were trying to nibble on your teeth. So I felt quite confident that I didn't have any cavities that all these posters were warning me of, because I guess I would have felt some sort of teeth versus germs war in my mouth. What really terrified me was the Vegetable Man poster. I don't know what sick, sadistic art department decided that this would be a great idea to promote healthy benefits of eating vegetables, then constructing a human face made primarily of vegetables and some fruits. The result was a horrific and terrifying, and worst of all, it was right above me. I tried to look to the left at the swashbuckling tooth again, but the dentist would always reposition my head like she wanted me to see it. She needed me to see her dark overlord. The Vegetable Man was her patron saint of good dental habits and daily dietary recommendations. Like Santa Claus, he knew when you haven't been eating your vegetables, and it really made him quite irate. Still to this day, when I look at a vegetable, I have flashes of the Vegetable Man and where that specific vegetable was on his face. I constantly remember those red eyes made out of tiny cocktail tomatoes, blazing a hole into my soul. But there I was, almost 30 years later, and I never heeded to those brightly coloured posters about good dental hygiene, or some kind of condescending, forever judging me evil Vegetable Man. I was just frozen in place. I didn't want to move in case more teeth got any ideas and wanted to leave too. Still in shock, I sat motionless at my computer, looking at the tooth glistening in the white light of my idle computer screen. That used to be a piece of me. I felt like crying, like part of me had died or committed suicide. It didn't want to be a part of me anymore, and I felt really sad about that, and suddenly found myself saying, I'm old, to no one in particular, in a dark, empty room. For the next few days, I felt like I was in mourning. I began to get into the habit of brushing my teeth anytime I had something to eat, to try and preserve what little teeth I had left. I looked into my mouth in the mirror and was ashamed at how much I've abandoned a part of myself to the point it had rotted away and had now gone forever. I'm really not sure why humans haven't evolved to have 3 sets of teeth and not just the 2. Surely we should all have baby teeth that we outgrow, and then we should have a second set for our teens and in our 20s that we could ruin at will, and eventually they will fall out due to neglect. And when you reach your 30s and somewhat more responsible, you should get what they should really call your real adult teeth. These are your final chance and you should really look after these ones. And they should be made out of diamonds. White diamonds, because white seems to be what looks kind of normal in your mouth, I guess. I finally gave in and made an appointment to see a dentist, which didn't pan out very well. I tried to email the dentistry, and 2 weeks later I got an email asking me what day's good for me. I wrote back any day, and I never heard back from them again. So I decided to go in, as it was on my way to the psychiatrist's appointment I go to once a week. And I noticed that this place is hardly ever open during the day, which is kind of weird. The one time I noticed it was open, I went in, and a woman came out and looked surprised that somebody actually walked into a dentistry. The reception room was empty and small, and she crept out behind a wall and stood at the edges like trying to hide something that was just behind her. I asked to make a booking, and she asked if it was an emergency, and I told her a tooth cracked and it fell out of my mouth. She then asked if I would open my mouth, and as soon as I did, she physically backed away and scrunched up her face, which is really not a good thing for a dentist whose profession it is to look into people's mouths. And let's face it, the majority of people who come in to see her probably have something wrong with their teeth that need correcting. The fact that she reacted so terribly, it was like I was showing her the deadlights from Stephen King's It. It really wasn't a good sign of things to come. She said I needed to make a booking straight away, but not this day because of some reason that she never gave me. She told me to come back on Saturday, and I asked her roundabouts how much this is going to cost me, which I think is a fair question because I wanted to know if I'm going to have to start selling my soul to get my teeth looking somewhat presentable again. Even though she looked like someone who really didn't want to look at my teeth ever again, even though this is her job and I would be paying her for this service. She looked at me with suspicion, like I was a poor hobo who had walked into an expensive boutique, and everybody knew right away that I couldn't afford anything in the store. There was a nervous, frantic vibe about her, and she quickly scribbled numbers on a piece of paper, and then got a calculator out of a drawer and asked if I had dental insurance, which I surprisingly did, which also surprised her. She ran it through some machine and gave me a receipt, and said it would cost about $300, but my out-of-pocket should only cost me around $100, which I thought was fair enough. This was just for a consultation and apparently a clean, and I assumed an x-ray as well. So when Saturday came around, I arrived, I had to fill in one of those first-time patient forms where you put down all your information and your medical history. When this was filled in, she put me in the chair and began to stare into my mouth with a face of horror, like she'd seen the devil's true form, and it was more horrific than she ever imagined. At some point, a man came in holding a clipboard of a paper that I filled in and began to scratch his head and nervously asked, it says here that you have a pacemaker. Yeah, I told him. A while ago I've had some strange fainting spells and sometimes seizures, and twice it seemed my heart stopped, so they put in a pacemaker as a way of preventing any further possibilities that this would ever happen again. This was the news that made this dentist become extremely more nervous than she already was. She questioned me about this pacemaker and the condition of my heart. I assured her, though, that any scans I've had of my heart seemed to be fine, but she just didn't believe me, and got me out of the chair as quickly as I got in, and cut the whole appointment short. She wanted me to go back to my cardiologist to get some kind of clarification that I'm not going to die in the dentist chair. She also asked me if I worked, and when I told her that I don't really have any consistent work, this made her more erratic and suspicious of my motives. And then things got awkward and silent for an uncomfortable period of time while I waited for my partner to come back. And she refused to speak to me anymore. Like, she's exhausted all the questions she needed answered and needed a third party to talk for me. It felt like an hour, but it was probably just 10 minutes. And as soon as my partner walked into the room, the woman got her to sit down and spoke to her about the state of my teeth, even though I was in the same room. She explained that I needed to have teeth removed and we should consider buying dentures. Great, I thought to myself. I'm not even 40 yet and already I have a pacemaker, and now I'm going to have to need dentures. I'm finally becoming that old man I always felt like I was, trapped inside of me all my life. When we had to pay the bill, it was about $70 more than what she estimated, and I booked the appointment. And my appointment, that was supposed to be a teeth cleaning and consultation, never really came close to what she promised. I think the pacemaker was the forbidden word inside the dentistry. They hate it more than when you say, I haven't been to the dentist in more than 10 years. We were told to go to some random address to get an x-ray, and also reminded me that I need consent from my cardiologist. And I needed to do all this by Monday, which was a day away. How we were ever going to achieve this, I had no idea. The cardiologist only worked at the hospital 1 day a week. Even when you get a referral from your GP, you still have to wait 6 months until they see you. So I'm not sure how you contact a specialist over a weekend and get an okay for dental work. The place she wanted us to go to for the x-ray wasn't even open. The voice message said that they close over Christmas holiday period and wouldn't be open until the first week of February. It was now mid-February and didn't look like this place wanted to x-ray anybody anytime soon, especially within the confines of the weekend. So as we walked back home that afternoon, we both agreed that we should never go back to that place ever again. This woman seemed too stressed to be someone who you would trust to be poking around in your mouth with sharp objects. When we got back, we found a dentist in walking distance that was actually covered by my dental insurance. I booked in to see this new dentist, and his mannerisms were the exact opposite of the other dentist we saw. He seemed calm, and pretty much nothing seemed to faze him. In the waiting room TV screen, there is a slideshow on loop about the services they offer, and many of the photos were photoshopped images of the staff, which seemed like it was all tied into some in-joke that made them all laugh every time they saw it, which made me feel at ease because I think a good judge of character is someone of a sense of humour. I had my x-rays done there, and the dentist looked at my teeth, and the whole thing was covered by my insurance and cost us nothing. Well, I guess in some ways it didn't cost us exactly nothing, as we still wasted money with that last crazy dentist. He sat me down and explained what needed to be done, and didn't look like someone who had seen a doorway into the very bowels of hell. He said it was something that could be fixed, and it wasn't as bad as I initially thought. I still had to have broken teeth removed, and the other one on the right that the other dentist wanted out, he said he could save with a root canal. Without even having to ask him, he printed out a plan for a series of treatments, plus their pricing. And since then I've been going back every week, and my teeth are looking much better. In fact, I don't recall them looking as good as they do now. It seems to be one less thing I have to worry about. I've been putting off seeing the dentist for so long now, that it kind of feels good to finally feel less embarrassed about the desolate state my teeth fell into. And I'm also glad I'm living in an era where going to the dentist is relatively painless, and they can do a lot more than just knocking all your teeth out and replacing them with wood, like a scurvy-riddled pirate. I feel like I have this second chance to preserve what I have left, and feel in a better state of mind to keep what teeth I have left. And luckily the teeth I have missing are hidden away at the back of my mouth, and as long as I don't do huge lion-like yawns in public, few people will probably even notice. I've cut down the amount of sugar I was flooding my system with, and actually eating a lot more vegetables, which would probably make that demonic vegetable man happy, but I kinda doubt it. I don't think anything would make him really happy. He looks pretty angry and judgmental. But then again, he's a guy made out of vegetables. Seems more like a curse, and I kinda get it. I only had a small tooth fall out of me. He's a man made out of vegetables, that at any point in time, his face could just fall apart. That's probably more terrifying than 100 mouths of rotted out dead teeth. So that's it for another week. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. I really do appreciate it. I know it's not something you want to hear about, but it's what's happening. But if you're this far into the podcast, you made it. Congratulations. And if you haven't already, you should subscribe, like on the very device you're using to keep you up to date whenever a new episode drops. If you're listening to this on iTunes, leaving a 5-star review really helps me out. But just telling someone is in many ways you can. If you really support this podcast, you think it's something good, then you should tell as many people as possible and help me spread this around like something positive in the world, hopefully. And you can do this by retweeting it on Twitter or sharing it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever you cool kids use these days. You can follow me on Twitter at Nashtopia, or you could follow the drawings I draw every day at Trav Nash Draws Things on Instagram. Music for this podcast is composed by Tim Witt, and you can listen to his music right now on SoundCloud just by searching for Tim Witt Sounds, and you can also listen to his albums on Bandcamp, where you can pay what you feel for some awesome music, and the links are in the description. If you can spare at least $1 a month, it's completely optional, to the Patreon, that would be awesome, and thank you very much for those who have stuck by this podcast and helped me out a little at the end of the month. So I guess that's it for another week. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. I really do appreciate it, and hello to all these new people that have been downloading it lately. It's really bizarre, but thank you if you're listening to this podcast. I don't know where you're all coming from, but I really do appreciate it. Quick update, I guess. I'm doing a little bit better. I'm seeing, I obviously have to see the dentist this week. I'm seeing the neurological epilepsy specialist on Wednesday, so these are positive things. And also, my general health seems to be a lot better. I seem to be in a better place, even though I go back to my old habits occasionally, but I'm doing a lot better. And lost a lot of weight, and probably at my lightest I've been in a long time, which is good, because during that depressing period I was probably 3 times my size. But anyway, what really matters is you're doing okay. I hope you're well and you look after yourself, and have a good week. Until next Monday, stay safe, and as always, peace.